We had to come back from break, but we had to stop the conversation to come back from break. So let's kind of go back to you talked to us about your faith and how important and how everything basically in your life is a result of how you see life, and your faith is what, I guess in a sense, is your rudder and steering you.
It started this way, and this is probably the greatest miracle in my life, is that I was making a living as a triathlete, and I say that because everyone who ever got a power bar says they're a professional triathlete.
I had one.
I was eking out a living, and one day I found myself at the end of one of the long bike ride. Sun was setting, just amazing circumstances, and I had this horrible feeling of guilt. Like, why am I getting all of this when there are kids dying of cancer? There are terrible things that happen. Why do I get this? And the next thing I knew, I found myself in Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. And not just in the hospital, but looking for a place to volunteer, to do something, to be some good. And you couldn't, there were reams of forms and lines. And while I was waiting, there was a door that was taped with the, do not enter, danger, Will Robinson kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, not being good with rules, I went in. And they hadn't named AIDS yet. And there was a lot of talk about the fact that, no, the blood supply is safe, don't worry, the Nancy Reagan blood supply is safe. And I went in the room, and it was kids who'd contracted this virus that was killing them. And they didn't know what it was. And even the doctors and nurses didn't want to go onto that ward because they weren't sure at that point whether it was airborne.
If they'd get it.
Right.
And but they knew they would all die. That was a fact.
They did know the fact was they were all dying in various forms. And I started to come back every week and visit with them, because you have this relationship with people who are that sick or that you're afraid of, where you treat them differently. Yep. Everyone treats them differently. And I would just laugh and joke and let them use the F word. And
with these kids?
With these kids, with this group of kids. And then I stumbled on the idea that there were races that I was doing that didn't require my name. They weren't part of my sponsorship deal. So I'd use the name of one of the kids on the ward and fill out the entry form. So if I won or did well the next day in the paper, the only name they had was from the entry form. So I'd gather up the medal, the trophy, the newspaper articles, and I'd bring them back to the hospital and go, look what you did.
Really?
And that came out of nowhere. That came out of nowhere.
Tell me about Project One and sports grants. And, well, I mean, it sort of goes without asking, why do you do it? Mm-hmm. But what are they about? Because they are different than other fundraising efforts. Or I know when I was reading about you, Live Strong, mm-hmm. and that organization, and the massive amounts of money that it takes to keep the organization in existence.
Right.
Which is in your mind and from the way that you look at things, completely counterproductive. And when I was reading about it, I think there was sort of a non-official, like for every dollar brought in, $1.30 has to be spent or something like that. That's ridiculous. What makes what you're doing so different?
Well, the figure you're referring to is events, is if you put on a run to raise money. Really early on when that was a new idea, everyone donated. The race director donated, the t-shirt company donated, the safety pin company donated. Well, it became a profit center. And philanthropy is a huge profit center. If you look at the chain of a donated dollar by the time it actually arrives, especially a grassroots dollar, it's incredible the profit-making hands it goes through before it actually gets to where it's going. And in most cases, it doesn't get there. If you look at Haiti, which is a macrocosm of this, is that you have billions of dollars that have come in that are drawing interest right now. There is very little construction going on in Haiti at the moment. There's very little. We provided food and water, and the world poured in the first few weeks, but as of today, there are 500,000 orphans in Haiti. Now, the difference between Project One is that there are big problems. The National Institutes of Health has 37,000 employees. A cure for cancer is off in the future someplace. But you look at everyone who puts that wristband on, no matter what color it is, and you ask them why they wear it, and it's because we're finding a cure for cancer. Well, it's been 30 years, and your grandchildren are probably not going to see a cure for cancer. However, why should somebody die horribly on a rubber pillow in a bad ward at a back-breaking expense when all of that money is there? So what we've done with Project One is we're building one orphanage in Haiti. It'll end up costing us about $800,000, but we're building it. So that when you give, and our method of giving is a little different because it takes all the expense out, is that...
And real quick, how is that?
Well, we don't put on events. We provide you the same platform, and we tell you, pogo stick up and down your driveway. Because the fact is, have you ever gotten one of those emails that says, I'm doing X event?
Oh, yeah. Please contribute, right. Or, walkathons and all of that. Yeah.
Exactly. Do you care what they were doing or who they were doing it for?
Who they were doing it for.
So what they were doing costs a fortune. And I hate to name names, but there's, you look at a walk that closes the bridge in Hood River, they don't close that bridge for free.
Right.
Right. Well, wouldn't that dollar be better spent on comforting someone in a hospice environment, providing volunteer training? One of the things that we're working on is the suicide hotline has become so antiquated that teen suicide, the number 3 leading cause of death between 15 and 24 is suicide.
Really?
Conditionally, but the fact is that there are no resources for it. So we are working with a group that has the infrastructure, because we can't take on all these projects from scratch, to build, it's called I'm Alive, and they're building a national teen suicide hotline chat line that is staffed by trained volunteers, a lot of whom have had that experience. And it'll be finished in 11 months.
Really?
Funded and finished. And that's Project One. One means finish one thing.
At a time.
Right.
Do that. Okay, we got to take another break, but
Sure.
You guys, when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation and learn more about what Scott's doing in his organization there. So make sure and stay with us. Be right back.
Up next.
But the higher nature is all these people are giving. They mean well, they want to help. But you have a job, you have kids, you have an enterprise. You can't devote yourself to this. So the way that you do good is you take somebody's word for it and you give your money.